Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Secretary, for being here today, and thank you for the administration's leadership on the proposal that you brought in to fill the Highway Trust Fund, including $10 billion in dedicated multimodal freight program. We very much appreciate the fact that not only are you dedicating investments towards moving freight in America, that you also are looking at ways to make sure that that we prioritize this from a funding perspective, and so we very, very much appreciate that. And I appreciate it in your opening statement about the rail car safety issue. All across my state, people are having this debate in their local communities. Practically every newspaper in my state is editorialized on the subject. I think the Spokesman Review probably said it best when it said, quote, "So Spokane and communities across the Northwest are at the mercy of a lumbering federal bureaucracy. We can draw up disaster plans, we can conduct drills, but after that, we just have to cross our fingers and watch the trains go by." And the reason why I brought the map up is because this is the train route, and as you can see, the train route goes through every major city in the Northwest. It'd be not a totally different story, but obviously if it went through a more rural community, but it's hitting every urban center of our state. So this is a big issue for us, and people obviously want to know. Today, your announcement will be helpful in giving transparency on emergency responders being able to access that information about what's being carried and when. So that's a positive step in the development. But I guess my question is, if people don't comply with the previous voluntary standards that you set out, or this response, is there any penalties for not responding to that if you're a shipper?
Well, let's take both. The safety advisory is not law, and that is what we are issuing today to urge not using DOT 111s for the transport of Bakken crude oil.
And when should they be phased out?
Well, we are under the rulemaking process currently. We submitted to OMB last week a comprehensive approach to this. The rule is still under review, but what I would say is that we are moving as expeditiously as we can to provide certainty to the communities you just talked about, as well as to industry. And as soon as that rule is out, our position on the timeline will be known.
Well, I would just say this. I think my communities are thinking you're thinking more about industry than thinking about communities. And that is, if you look at what previously happened with the incidents and now what just happened in Lynchburg, and I get that this is a challenging question at where to draw the line, but if we know that we want to get rid of these carriers that we don't think are a safe transport vehicle for the Bakken oil, and we think it's unsafe, then we should come up with a date and certainty. Making it voluntary, in my opinion, isn't going far enough. And to think now from the Lynchburg situation that one of the cars that may have derailed or exploded might even be a newer car, which may pose a question to us, even is the newest car going to be safe enough? Again, for these communities in my state, huge populations, a lot of transportation going through there, just knowing that they're coming through there isn't going to be enough, and so I would urge, DOT to, when you look at the, 8,000% increase in the amount of product now being carried. So what's happened is an explosion of product being carried through this area and not the right response and safety regulation. So we are urging a mandatory date for getting rid of these DOT 111 cars and a mandatory rule on safety, because we just think it's too much for people to ignore the voluntary agreement without policing, with so many people at risk, as we saw in Canada and as we saw in Lynchburg and as we're seeing in other areas. So I thank you, though. I thank you for your responsiveness.
Thank you. And Senator, rest assured that we agree with you the voluntary measures that were undertaken by virtue of the call to action that we did with industry a few months ago were intended to be interim steps until a rule was actually promulgated and finalized. And again, we're working as hard and fast as we can to get that done. We know the certainty matters, and it is because communities across America have had concerns about this that we issued the emergency order, which is binding on the industry to notify communities as to what is moving through their communities when it comes to this oil.
Will your rulemaking be done by the end of the year?
It is my intention that it will, and I hope to have it done sooner than that if we can.
Thank you.